You were born in Rome, and that sounds pretty cool until you realize what that actually meant. Your family, the Julii, was ancient, sure, but not exactly rich. You were what the Romans called a patrician with problems. Prestige? Yes. Power? Not so much. But hang in there, young lad, because you're destined to become Julius Caesar, a man whose name will become a title for emperors for the next 2,000 years. But for now, you're just the scrawny kid with a famous last name and dangerously ambitious aunt. You were born into a system that worshipped tradition, but devoured the people born into it. Rome had this habit of chewing up promising young men and spitting them out somewhere in Gaul. You didn't have a safety net, you had legacy, and that was both a gift and a death sentence. You were expected to do great things simply because your ancestors once had. Nobody cared if you had the money to back it up. Nobody cared if you had actual power. You had a name. And the weight of Rome's impossible expectations sat on your shoulders from the moment you cried in that cradle. Look, you're just a scrawny kid with a famous last name and an aunt married to one of the most dangerous men in the Republic. And that was your real lottery ticket to your uncle by marriage, Gaius Marius, a man who rose from nothing to become a 7-time consul and the architect of Rome's military reforms. To the people, he was a hero. To the Senate, he was a problem they couldn't get rid of. And through him, your family was aligned with the faction that pretended to care about the poor while secretly plotting their own rise to power. This wasn't a neutral stance. This was a declaration of war in a city that ran on vendettas. You had chosen sides before you were even old enough to pick your own tunic. Rome wasn't just a city, it was a chessboard soaked in blood. Every senator wore a smile with a dagger behind it. Every political dinner might as well have had poison on the menu. And then, just as you're starting to figure out where you fit into in this glorious disaster of a city, life cuts your leg out from underneath you. Your father dies when you're 15, not in a glorious battle, not as a political martyr, just dead, gone. And just like that, the weak branch of the Julii family tree is down to you, a teenager with a title and no money, standing alone in the middle of the Roman hurricane. That moment losing your father doesn't come with grief counseling. There's no take your time to heal in ancient Rome. You are now the head of the household, whether you liked it or not. The decisions, the debts, the alliances, the enemies, they were all yours now. A boy thrown into a gladiator pit of aristocrats who already hated you before you could grow a beard. And if that wasn't enough, Marius, your one powerful lifeline, gets overthrown in a violent civil war by his rival, Lucius Cornelius Sulla. This wasn't just a change of government, it was a purge, a full-blown bloodletting. Sulla wasn't just a victor, he was a man with a list, literally. The prescription lists a roll call of people who needed to die for the Republic to survive. And guess what family name was etched on that list? That's right, yours. Now, you're not just a teenager with debts. You're a fugitive, a target. Sulla takes your inheritance, demands that you divorce your wife Cornelia because she's the daughter of Cinna, another one of Marius's allies. You say no. Bold, stupid, and the first glimpse of the political grenade you'll one day become. Sulla responds by putting a bounty on your head. And so, before your 20s, you're already on the run, sleeping in forests, bribing guards, hiding your face. This is your Rome coming-of-age story, not love letters and poetry, survival. And yet somehow, through a few backdoor negotiations and a lot of powerful friends pulling strings, Sulla eventually lets you live. He spares you, but not without a warning. That boy, he reportedly said, has too many Caesars in him. He's dangerous. Dangerous at 19, and he was right. But none of that matters yet, because for now, you're just broke, hunted, and trying to figure out what being a Caesar actually means. Spoiler alert, it means more pain, more betrayal, and a level of ambition so lethal, it will eventually cost you everything, including your life. But we're not there yet. We're still with the teenage Caesar exiled, excommunicated, and slowly becoming the man who will one day turn the Roman Republic into a memory. And crash it did. Marius lost a power struggle to Sulla, a dictator who took one look at your family tree and decided it needed pruning. Sulla demanded you divorce your wife Cornelia because she was the daughter of Cinna, another enemy of the state. But you, being a stubborn teenager with more pride than sense, said no. Bold move. Sulla responded by seizing your inheritance and putting you on the execution list. So, what did you do? You ran. You bounced around the Roman countryside, hiding from bounty hunters and dodging death like it was a national sport. Eventually, some influential friends convinced Sulla to spare your life, though even Sulla reportedly said that boy has too many Caesars in him, he's dangerous. Great, now you're dangerous. But you're also broke, so you joined the army. Not because of patriotism, but because you literally have nothing else to do. And surprise, you're great at it. You win a civic crown, Rome's version of a hero medal for saving lives in battle. When you finally return to Rome, you're older, more seasoned, and just petty enough to remember every senator who snubbed you. Then comes your early political career. You play it smart. You get elected as a priest, then a military tribune, then questor, all stepping stones, but you still don't have money. So what do? You borrow heavily. You go into debt so deep that if you failed politically, you'd be ruined. And you did all of this just for the chance to climb Rome's corrupt political ladder. Your creditors had more faith in your ambition than in your wallet. You marry well, make key alliances, and charm your way up the cursus honorum. You throw the most extravagant games and parties, not because you love entertainment, but because you know the Roman masses vote with their stomachs and their eyes. And that requires coin, the kind you don't have. By the time you run for consul, you owe so much money that even modern politicians would blush. But you win. You become consul in 59 BCE, the highest elected office in the Republic. And then you make your most strategic move yet. You form a political alliance with Crassus, the richest man in Rome, and Pompey, the most successful general. This was the first triumvirate, 3 men who hated each other but hated the Senate even more. And you played them both like a liar. You get a proconsulship in Gaul, and suddenly you're not just a politician, you're a warlord. Not metaphorically, literally. You have legions under your command, steel in your hands, and a personal vendetta against irrelevance. And Gaul is chaos, a patchwork of tribal confederations, languages, and endless resistance. It's not a province, it's a proving ground. And for the next decade, you make it yours. You don't just win battles, you rewrite maps. You fight in the mud, in forests, in the icy mountain passes of the Alps, where your enemies knew the terrain better than you ever could. But strategy beats geography, and you weren't there to learn, you were there to dominate. One village at a time, you break the back of Roman resistance with Roman discipline and your own ruthless flair. You cross rivers swollen with rain, you lay siege to walled cities, and when negotiations fail, you ordered massacres that echoed throughout history. Entire populations are slaughtered or sold into slavery. It's not politics anymore. It's empire building, and it runs on blood. Tens of thousands die so that one man in a crimson cloak can write back to Rome about another glorious victory. And right you do. The commentaries on the Gallic War, your personal propaganda campaign. Every triumph is exaggerated, every defeat omitted. You're not just feeding the Roman people's stories. You're crafting a legend, brick by brick, sentence by sentence. The Senate sees conquest. The public sees a god. You make yourself indispensable, irreplaceable, eternal, and most importantly, immortal. The loot, it flows into Rome like a river. Gold, silver, exotic animals, even whole families brought back in chains. You don't just win battles, you win the public. You pay your soldiers generously too. You call them comrades, not underlings. You give them land, glory, and purpose. And in return, you get loyalty so fanatical, it will follow you across rivers no Roman general dares cross. But Gaul does something else to you. It changes you. The man who left Rome with dreams of power comes back darker, quieter, harder. You've seen too much. You've ordered too much. Somewhere in those endless winter campaigns, something inside you calcified. You stop hesitating. You stop questioning. You become obsessed with control of land, of men, of destiny. And while you're away playing God in the forests of France, Rome begins to crack. Crassus, the man whose money helped you launch your political career, dies in a disastrously miscalculated war in Parthia. His death removes the only buffer between you and Pompey. And Pompey, he doesn't just shift allegiances, he flips the board. He marries into the conservative elite, aligns with the Senate, and starts painting you as a war criminal, a tyrant in the making, a second Sulla with better cheekbones. The Senate, emboldened and terrified, issues the final blow. They order you to disband your legions and return to Rome as a private citizen. They frame it as a legal obligation. You understand it for what it is, a death sentence in disguise. If you return without your army, you'll be prosecuted, humiliated, erased. Everything you bled for in Gaul will vanish. History doesn't remember disgraced men, it remembers conquerors. So, you make a choice. You lead your troops to the banks of the Rubicon River. You stop. One step across means civil war. It means Rome versus Rome. But you know the truth. Rome's already at war. It just doesn't know it yet. You stare at the water, then you say it. Alea lacta est. The die is cast. And just like that, everything burns. Civil war erupts. Senators flee the city. Pompey rallies troops in the east. You march through Italy like a storm. Towns open their gates without a fight. You're not seen as an invader. You're seen as justice. As destiny, you push forward, relentless. You meet Pompey's forces at Pharsalus in Greece. His army is bigger, better equipped. You still crush them. Pompey flees to Egypt, hoping for sanctuary, but you're not far behind. And when you finally arrive, you find a severed head handed to you by Egyptian officials trying to win your favor. They thought they were giving you a gift. You don't thank them. you don't smile. Instead, you cry, because somewhere deep inside you, beneath the ambition, the violence, the power games, there was still a part of you that respected the man you just destroyed. You didn't need Pompey dead, you needed him to lose. And now, with him gone, there's no one left who understands what it took to rise the way you did. You stand in Egypt, victorious, but more alone than ever. But your problems aren't over. You meet Cleopatra, fall into a complicated alliance, and maybe something more. You leave her in power, but not before igniting scandal back home. Romans aren't thrilled about their leader cozying up with a foreign queen. You're declared a dictator, but the whispers grow louder. Some call you a savior, others a king. And that's the problem. Rome hated kings. They kicked out their last one centuries ago. And now, you're strutting around in red boots, taking every emergency power you can get, packing the Senate with loyalists, and refusing to step down. Then you make the biggest mistake of your life. You trust the Senate. You go to a meeting unarmed without guards. After all, you're Julius Caesar. Who would dare touch you? 60 senators. That's who. On the Ides of March, they surround you. You see your friend Brutus among them. You don't fight back. You just say, "Et tu, Brute?" Then you die, stabbed 23 times on the floor of a theater built by your political rival. Your body bleeds out in the shadow of a statue of Pompey, the man you once defeated. Your name would echo through centuries, sure, but your death tore the Republic apart. Your adopted son Augustus would finish what you started, and your legacy, it would be written by those who survived you. So yeah, being born as Julius Caesar means eternal fame, but it also means betrayal, bloodshed, paranoia, and a lifetime spent climbing a ladder that only ends in a knife to the gut. Maybe greatness really is a curse.